to send a clear message to every boardroom, every executive suite across America. If you scam your customers, exploit your employees, pollute our environment, or rip off taxpayers, we will find ways to hold you accountable.
As a business person, I've legally used the tax laws to benefit, really, I mean, it's to my benefit, and to benefit of my company, my investors, my employees, my family. When the bottom fell out of the real estate market, I had all the debt, it stayed the same, but the value of the assets plummeted. Interesting. But I knew how to use the tax code to rebuild my company when others didn't have a clue.
Well, the presidential candidates both talking a little bit about taxes this week after a New York Times report revealed Donald Trump lost nearly $1 billion in 1995. And because of that loss, he may not have paid any federal taxes for many years afterwards. Both candidates using it to send a clear message about why their tax policy is the better choice. But what do we really know about that tax policy? Art Laffer is founder and chairman of Laffer Associates and a former Reagan economic advisor. And Betsy Stevenson is associate professor at the University of Michigan and former member of President Obama's Council of Economic Advisors. She's also advised the Clinton campaign. It's great to have you both as we do kind of wonder, what do we really know about the tax plans from either candidate? The Associated Press had a really great article on this today and points out that for 99% of the viewers that are watching right now, both candidates don't have a tax plan that would impact anyone very much, Art. In fact, what they point out is that Trump wants to cut taxes on the wealthy and Clinton wants to raise taxes on the wealthy. So how would that impact your everyday American?
Well, if that's where all it was, that wouldn't do much, except what Trump has done is got the corporate tax rate down to 15%. Instead of being the highest in the OECD, that will be one of the lowest. That will bring businesses and investments back to the U.S., my view of the world. Bringing the personal income tax rate down to 35% is a good first start to create incentives. But repealing Obamacare and repealing the executive orders, I think, is a major change in the tax codes that would really allow the U.S. to prosper and grow much faster than it has over the last 16 years.
Betsy, the way Art describes it, it sounds like a good deal. What do you think is wrong with that?
Well, I think that it will affect average Americans because we're talking about cutting the tax rates for the richest Americans massively. It's not just about lowering the top rate, but he's also talking about applying that corporate tax rate to lots of wealthy Americans who consider themselves to be pass-through businesses. So lots of Americans will have a top tax rate of 15%, while middle-class Americans will still pay a higher share of their income in taxes. Trump clearly knows how, at least to hire the right people, to use the loopholes to benefit himself. But he has no plan to close those loopholes and ensure that we're able to raise the revenue we need fairly in order to have an economy that supports all Americans and can, when we have economic growth, that economic growth can be shared widely.
You know, that's an interesting point that Betsy brings up. Art, what about those loopholes? And what the New York Times story is really bringing up is whether or not the wealthy have some of these loopholes to where they're not contributing to the greater good.
Well, Donald Trump clearly does know what the loopholes are and how to use them very well. And that's really a prima facie reason for him being able to close those loopholes. I think what you need is what Jerry Brown did in 1992, a low-rate, broad-based flat tax with no exemptions, deductions, or exclusions, and let everyone pay the same rate. But if I can, one point I think is important. You change tax rates not to help the rich or hurt the rich. You change those highest tax rates to create more jobs, more output, more employment. And I've got to tell you, Jenna, I have never heard of an economy being taxed into prosperity. It just doesn't make sense.
Let me ask Betsy about that, because that's something else that Clinton looks like she's attempting to do, Betsy, which would create an even higher top tier, the wealthy, 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 and they'd be taxed more. Why would that be helpful for the economy overall? What's the argument for that?
Well, if Art really believes in a tax system where we broaden the base and we close the loopholes, then it sounds like he wants Hillary Clinton's tax plan, because that's what she's going to do, is broaden the base and close the loopholes so people are paying their fair share. We do have things we need to provide. We need to provide national defense. We have things that the public wants, and we need people to be paying their fair share. And right now, the wealthiest Americans are not paying their fair share. They're earning more, and the economy is growing for them, but they are not paying their fair share in taxes.
what about
and that's
that?
a system we have to rectify.
All right, I just want to give you an opportunity to respond whether or not you truly are a Hillary Clinton tax proposal proponent, which would be breaking news if that's the case. But what do you think about the top tier getting higher taxes, and Betsy's explanation as to why that would be helpful for some other Americans?
Let me just say, I was a supporter of Bill Clinton's very much, and I am supporter of a lower tax rate, broader base. I really am. I don't think Hillary Clinton will deliver any of that. And by raising the highest tax rates, we know that every single time the highest tax rates raised, you collect less revenues from the rich because they find shelters, avoidance, underground economy, all sorts of loopholes to get around. They can buy the Treasury, they can buy the Goldman Sachs can. What you need is a low-rate, broad-based flat tax, just the way Jerry Brown proposed it, and that's the way to go. And I think Donald Trump is moving us very much in that direction. And given time, I think he'd actually do it.
Interesting. I'll give you both. I would love
if that were true.
Go ahead, Betsy, quickly.
I just, think about when America's growth rates were highest. That's when actually we had more progressivity in our tax rates, and we had higher marginal tax rates. So we've had 30 years to test out this philosophy of cutting taxes for the top and getting great growth for it, and I don't think the middle class has seen any of the returns to that over the last 30 years.
That really sets us up. I want to use that soundbite. That would set us up for a great next debate. So I hope you both come back, because in between all the really intelligent things you both are saying, I believe there might be some common ground, and I'm going to find it one day. Betsy, Art, great to have you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Jenna. Thank you, Betsy.